Okay, so why is it that men try and make their grief invisible? Why do they not want people to see it? And the first reason that men don't want you to be able to see it is because a man's emotional pain is taboo in our culture. It is taboo. No one wants to touch it. And you know what happens when something's taboo? You want to stow it away. You want to make it something no one sees. And of course, grief in general is like that, but men's grief is even worse. And the men understand this. The men understand that no one wants to feel their pain, but sometimes the women have to kind of learn a little bit more in order to get to that point. And let's try a little experiment here to help you understand on a little bit deeper level why or how it works that men's pain is taboo. So I want you to sit back, we're going to tell you a story, and you're going to follow through this story. So I want you to close your eyes and think about this. Think about the last time, or no, think about a new time you're going to go to your favorite restaurant. And as you're being seated in your favorite restaurant, you look over in the corner and you see a woman at a table crying. What's your immediate response to her? What comes through your mind when you see that? I've asked this question to thousands of people in my workshops. Over and over they tell me the same thing. Most people, men and women, look at her and they say, "Poor dear, something's upsetting her. She's hurt. She needs support." These are the most common phrases that people have about that woman at the corner table who's crying. There's this sense that something needs to be done. She needs help in some way. Okay, now I erase that image. I want you to go back to that same restaurant, except this time I want you to walk in to be seated, and over at the same corner table is a man who's crying. What's your immediate gut reaction to that? What happens inside you when you see this man crying? What are the first words that come to your mind? Those thousands of people I've talked to, what do they say? They say almost the same thing. The first thing they say is, "Something wrong with that guy." And then they say, "Avoid him. Let's kind of tiptoe around him. Just avoid him." And they say, "He's drunk. He's out of control." It's all kinds of things happen. But there's this deep sense in both men and women that you need to sidestep this guy. You need to avoid him. How about you? Did you feel the same way about the woman sitting there at the table versus the man sitting there at the table crying? I'll bet you didn't. I can tell you, after working with men for many years, and I came up with that idea, I too was thinking, "Oh, the poor dear one." And the man that I was going to sidestep around, I was going to move around him. We all tend to have at least a little bit of this. And think about what it's like for men to have emotion that people want to step around. You know, how many men have you heard say over and over again, someone will come to them after a child dies, and the person will come to the man and they'll say, "How's your wife doing? How's your wife holding up?" He's thinking, how about me? But no one says much. Why? Because they're kind of sidestepping. It's this natural taboo that we have. We'll learn more and more about how this natural taboo works, but know that it's very, very important with grief, and that it's a natural reaction in men to not bring their grief to the public sphere because they get shamed. They get shamed and they get avoided. People think there's something wrong with them. Okay, so the second thing that makes men's grief invisible in our culture has to do with the provide and protect role. Provide and protect is a role that men have been facing for years and years. It's old as the hills. And maybe we can describe it easily by talking about a story. Imagine that you and your husband are woken up at night, 3 o'clock in the morning. There's some sound way down, maybe in the first floor, maybe in the basement. Some big sound, something happened down there. Somebody's got to go check it out. Who's it going to be? Well, we can just imagine that the man is probably going to be the one to go. Because what happens if he doesn't go? If he says, "No, honey, I really don't feel like doing that tonight. I think I'll just lay in bed." What happens then? He gets shamed. He gets harshly judged for not following through on what is, quote, his role. Whereas the woman, for the last 50 years, her roles have become more flexible. So she could say, "Oh, honey, please go check that. That'll be fine." Or she could say, "I'll go check it," and she'd be a hero. So either way, the woman wins, but only one way does the man win, and that's if he does the going, and he goes down to check it out. So this role kind of is all over the place for men, not just at home and at night when we're woken up, but it's all over. You know, think about the masculine professions, you know, like the firemen, policemen, armed forces. You know, imagine that a policeman came up on an accident scene and saw what was happening and fell down in tears. People would be outraged. Wait a minute. Why is he falling down in tears? It's no time to cry. He's got to get his job done. And that's exactly what happens. Men, quote, need to get the job done first. Then after their job is done, then maybe they can do what they need to do, like emote. So we kind of hold men responsible to both provide and protect, but particularly protect. You know, like we said, the police force, the fire department, the military, all of these are places where men are expected to protect, and they're expected to take their own needs and shove them down. You know, think about the Army. Oh my gosh, you know, when people go in the Army, they are no longer an individual. They become a servant to the Army. Anything that they have that's individual is pushed down and thrown out. And that's a part of the provide and protect thing. We need to see that men are under this invisible harness that says you're supposed to provide and protect. Now it's changing a little bit, but really underneath it's still there in so many different ways. We can see the provide and protect role in other places, one of which is in our culture in general. In fact, in homeless people, there's an article written by a man named Peter Marin. And the article was called Abandoning Men, Jill Gets Welfare, and Jack Gets Homeless. You know? And what he says is basically that because men are thought of as only provide and protect, they don't get services. Most of the services given to the underprivileged from the government are to women and children, not to men. Marin has a great quote in this article where he says, to put it simply, men are neither supposed nor allowed to be dependent. They're expected to take care of others and themselves, and when they cannot or will not do it, then the assumption at the heart of the culture is that they are somehow less than men, and therefore unworthy of help. An irony asserts itself. By being in need of help, men forfeit the right to it. Can you see how the double standard works? How it's a trap for men? You better be strong and provide and protect. If you're not strong and provide and protect, and you show neediness or dependency, then people will look down on you, and in the long run, they'll even go as far as saying, you're not worthy of help if you are a dependent or a needy man. So this kind of thing runs deep. It's not a shallow sort of thing, and we can see it in therapy. You know, we haven't talked about the emotional side of this yet, and there's a lot that goes on there. I saw it very clearly when I was at St. Francis back in the 80s, mostly in the 80s, when I'd see families who had had a child die. I would make sure that everyone in the family got a chance to speak their truth about what they were feeling. The kids would open up easily, the mom would open up easily, but when it came to the dad, well, he wasn't so sure he wanted to open up. So what did I do? I encouraged him. I said, oh, you need to have a chance like everyone else. You know, you need to be able to speak your truth and la, 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 la. And sooner or later, the man starts opening up about his side of things. And he starts talking about it, and he starts crying. And as soon as he starts crying, guess what happens? The kids start getting nervous. I watched. I could see the kids start getting nervous. They're starting to get afraid. What's wrong? Dad's crying. Mom would even get a little freaked out. She wouldn't be overtly afraid, but she was sort of, tapping her fingers and a little bit on the worried side. Why? Because you see, Dad had rarely emoted in front of the family before. And so because of this, people were a little bit shocked and a little bit afraid, because he had always kept things safe just by his presence, not by emoting, but by just containing the space and being straightforward, containing things for other people. You see how it works? But then once that left, they started getting nervous and upset. And I noticed this at St. Francis. I saw how when the men started to emote, the So it made me realize that for years men have held back their emotions in families because they are literally stewarding the space. They're stewarding the space for the people that are there. And as soon as they stop stewarding that space, then it's noticed. And then people start feeling unsafe and afraid. But you don't feel it until the man stops stewarding. So most families never get that opportunity, and they just see the man as being cold and unfeeling. Okay, so provide and protect is all over the place, from the workplace to the home to the way we emote. And the reason we see men pushing down feelings is one more reason is because they've got this provide and protect thing that's hanging over them that says don't look dependent, don't look needy, and it's almost like a straitjacket that holds them in. And this straitjacket is invisible and it's silent. But I think we can see very clearly now that not only is a man's pain, emotional pain, taboo in our culture, the provide and protect role puts another layer on top of that.